Before America had a name, before its flag ever touched the wind, before freedom was more than a dangerous idea, there was only silence. A vast land ruled by a distant king, a land where voices were unheard and dreams were forbidden. And in that land, history quietly chose a boy, not a prince, not a genius, not a hero, just a boy who would one day refuse a crown. Chapter 1, A Boy Born Without Destiny, 1732. February 22nd, 1732. In a small Virginia farmhouse, a child was born. No bells rang, no crowds gathered, no prophecy was spoken. His name was George Washington. His family was ordinary, his future uncertain. At 11 years old, death visited his home. His father collapsed and never stood again. The world does not prepare a child for that moment. Suddenly, George was no longer a boy. Dreams of education vanished. Dreams of greatness faded. But something else was born that day. Silence, discipline, endurance. He wrote rules in a notebook, as if trying to build himself. Speak not unless what you say is worth hearing. This was not childhood innocence. This was survival. Chapter 2, Into the Wilderness. While others studied books, George studied storms, hunger, and fear. At 16, he entered the wilderness alone. No maps, no protection, no mercy. Every step could be death. This land shaped him. His hands hardened, his back straightened, his will sharpened. He learned one brutal truth. Nature does not care who you are, and neither does war. Chapter 3, His First Failure in Blood. At 22, George Washington commanded men, but courage does not equal wisdom. Gunfire echoed, men screamed, plans collapsed. He failed. The battlefield humbled him. Many died under his command. This failure haunted him forever, but instead of breaking him, it forged him. From that moment on, Washington learned, every life matters. Chapter 4, A Quiet Man in a Loud Empire. Years passed. George married, he farmed, he lived quietly, but the empire tightened its grip. Taxes rose, voices were silenced, anger boiled. Washington watched and waited. When rebellion whispered, he did not shout. When war approached, he did not celebrate, because he knew what war costs. Chapter 5, A Command He Did Not Want. The colonies stood on the edge of destruction. They needed a leader, not a loud man, not a greedy man, a man who could carry suffering. Washington stood silently as Congress chose him. He said, I am not equal to this task, but he accepted, not for glory, for duty. Chapter 6, An Army Held Together by Hope. His army was broken before it ever fought. Bare feet in snow, empty stomachs, torn clothes, men deserted. Others begged to surrender. Washington did not abandon them. He shared their hunger. He shared their cold. He slept on the ground. He stood when others fell. Chapter 7, Valley Forge. Where men became legends. Winter swallowed the camp. Death walked freely. Soldiers froze mid-sentence. And yet, the army did not collapse. Why? Because their commander refused comfort. History remembers this moment. George Washington, alone, kneeling in snow, praying, not for victory, for survival. Chapter 8, The Unthinkable Victory Against Logic, Against Power, Against Empire. The colonies endured. At Yorktown, the British surrendered. The world gasped. Freedom had won. Chapter 9, The moment that defined him now came temptation. He was loved. He was feared. He was powerful. Men begged him to rule, to become king. Washington did the unthinkable. He resigned. He walked away. King George III himself said, if he gives up power, he will be the greatest man alive. Chapter 10, The First President. Reluctantly, Washington returned. Elected unanimously, no campaign, no ambition. He set rules that saved democracy. Power must be temporary. Leaders must leave after 2 terms. He left again. Epilogue. Death of a Giant, December 14th, 1799. George Washington died quietly. No throne, No crown, only legacy. The man who could have ruled the world chose to build a nation instead. America was not born from power, it was born from restraint, and George Washington remains its greatest lesson. True greatness is knowing when to walk away. By the late 1790s, George Washington was tired. Not the kind of tired sleep can fix. The tiredness that comes from carrying a nation on your shoulders. His hair had turned white, his hands trembled, his body ached with the memories of war, cold, hunger, and loss. He had given everything, his youth to war, his peace to leadership, his name to history, yet power still followed him. Even after leaving the presidency, letters arrived daily. People still asked, what should America do? Who should America trust? How should America survive? Washington read them quietly and sighed. Before leaving office, he wrote words that still echo today. His farewell address was not political. It was fatherly. He warned, do not let hatred divide you. Do not let power corrupt you. Do not worship leaders. He feared political parties would tear the nation apart. He feared ambition more than enemies. And then he did something rare in history. He left. No force removed him. No revolt pushed him out. He chose to step aside. In that moment, democracy breathed its first real breath. Mount Vernon welcomed him home, but peace never truly returned. He woke early, walked slowly, stared at the river. Sometimes visitors noticed him standing still for long moments, thinking, perhaps remembering, the men who froze at Valley Forge, the lives lost under his command, the impossible decisions he had made. Great men do not escape memory. December 1799, a harsh winter arrived. Washington insisted on riding through snow and rain to inspect his land. He returned soaked. That night, he began to cough. By morning, his voice was gone. Doctors came. They bled him, again and again, believing it would cure him. Instead, it weakened him further. Washington knew, this time, there would be no recovery. On December 14, 1799, George Washington lay in bed. He was calm. He gave instructions. He asked that his body not be buried until 3 days had passed, in case of mistake. Then he said quietly, I am not afraid to die. At around 10 p.m., he looked at those around him and simply stopped breathing. No dramatic words, no final speech, just silence. America froze. Church bells rang for days. Cities wore black. Even enemies mourned. Napoleon Bonaparte ordered 10 days of mourning in France. The man who refused a crown had become immortal.